practice notes, breakdown of Jonathan Givony, plus who are the recruiting priorities for the Huskies. You're on the Hoop Scout.
Let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby. Home of the champions. Let's go.
Welcome into the Hoops Cat Pod. I am your host, Mark Zanetto. First off, thank you all who are keeping on subscribing and watching and downloading, and we grow every week. We really appreciate you making us part of your hoops routine, whether it's daily, weekly, however you subscribe to us. We really appreciate it. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Download the audio versions on Spotify, Apple, wherever you have your podcasts, so you never miss a moment. Thank you again for all of those who are making us a part of your just daily routine if you're a Husky fan. Also, if you're brand new, we started another channel called Big Football Energy, where we do, as you guessed, we have the Rent Stew podcast, UConn football, which took a tough loss over the weekend against Syracuse. We're going to debut a new NFL show this coming Thursday. Big Bet Energy, another kind of 50% or less on the Big Bet Energy show. That was not a great debut, but week one, if I hit all those picks, you guys would all probably see me wearing diamonds and having that grill like Malik Neighbors or something like that. But it just was not meant to be. But today, let's get into it. Two juicy UConn men's basketball segments today. Some practice notes on UConn's 25-26 outlook from Draft Express's Jonathan Givony, who, if you aren't familiar with him, definitely check out his site. It's an expensive tool, but man, is it worth it? Because if I asked any coach in terms of the high D1 level, mid-major level, wherever, and I've asked, who do you go to for draft work? It's by far 4-1 easily Jonathan Givony. And it's who the coaches trust as far as player evals and comps. No better guy to kind of go over some of his observations, right? And then we'll do a deep dive into the recruiting priorities for the 26-27 class. And that's where some of the calculus really begins and where the staff decisions today shape these championships tomorrow. Stopping by those two UConn practices, Jonathan Givony got a closer look at how Danny Hurley's Huskies are coming together. And let's be real, it feels like the DNA of another title contender. And yes, it's early. It was September 8th. We've got 1 week of football or a couple weeks of football, and basketball is 50 plus days away. But basketball doesn't sleep in this network. So first thing, team identity. The first thing that jumps off the page from his assessment is intensity. This is what Danny has trademarked: a practice culture where the ball pops, extra passes are made, guys sacrifice shots to get teammates better looks. And that's not a window dressing kind of situation. That's the identity, the culture of this team. Front court playmaking. Alex Karaman continues to be that steadying force, showing off his feel and spectacular passing. He's become the model of a modern college forward, someone who cannot just score, but initiate offense. And alongside of him, Terrace Reed, looking leaner, in better shape, active, looks like a true offensive hub. Those two together give UConn something very special that every NBA team craves: front court playmakers. Add Silas Demery to that equation, and this consistency level could skyrocket, and it'll determine how far this team really goes. And now, something that we talked about, definitely didn't need to be a practice to know this, but it's good to know that guys who are in this business, who are going to these practices and writing these evals, are seeing what we already know about Solo Ball, that he is on major breakout watch. Already known as the best shooter on this team and likely, arguably, the best shooter in the country. He's now attacking off the dribble. The last show we did where we're doing these previews, and we'll have another couple of guys here in the next few days. So we talked about Solo. Can you create off the dribble? Can you take that mid-range game just so you have it so that people close out on you a little lighter, using that wingspan on defense? But, he's using that attacking dribble that we talked about and really highlighted about, whether it's, relating it to Jerry West, whether it's relating it to, the the heroes of yesteryear, my GOAT, Michael Jordan, right? The mid-range game. What is that going to do for his elevation of his status? I think it's going to make him an All-American candidate. And I didn't know this, but I think when Solo came in, he had like a 6'10 wingspan. He's grown. I think maybe his measurements that were wrong. 6'11", 7 foot is what Jonathan is writing in his eval. So using that 7 foot wingspan, which is incredible, to create deflections on defense, making plays that scream breakout. If he takes that leap, he's an All-American. And, obviously that's voting and that's subjective, but All-American level. Then, something that we've chronicled here at the Hoops Cap, the freshmen. Look, it's hard to break up, Dan Hurley's lineup in terms of not break up, but to break into Dan Hurley's lineup when it comes to freshmen. But as early as last summer, when we knew that Braylon was coming, and we talked to Adam Finkelstein and others in that business. This kid is legit. That he is not somebody that they feel like is going to take too long to figure this stuff out. But a little less shine from Jonathan, which is fine. I love that because it kind of maybe centers the expectations to where they should be with Braylon and also Eric Riba, that they both flash their talent, which is what we're going to see. We're going to see flashes, but they're still learning that Hurley system, and that's normal, right? So let's please temper expectations when it comes to Braylon, when it comes to Eric. Just give them time. They're going to be good. Whether that means that they're going to end up being one and dones or stick around for a couple years, time will tell. But the real question is, how quickly do they get comfortable? And the sooner that is, we had Seth Greenberg talk about how Braylon struggled early and then hit 7 straight shots. So are we going to see a game like that early and then be like, oh my God, this kid's the greatest thing since sliced bread? Or are we going to see kind of a steady climb, kind of like Steph? Steph had the knee thing, and then he kind of got into the rhythm, into the fold, and then he was a fixture. Number 4 pick in the draft. NCAA champion. Dominant defender. Probably could have been a dominant offensive player, but they didn't need him to be. So we'll see. The big picture is the roster is loaded with experience. Like every time I see a video, I see Alec Millander, who's like the backup point guard, making an incredible backdoor pass to whether it's Solo or Alex. So they have experience. The one thing that we've talked about is Dan was not going to go into this season without multiple backup point guard opportunities. So you have Alec Millander, you got Malachi Smith, and that's not even counting who's starting in Silas Demery Jr. So if Caravan, Reed, and Demery stay steady, Solo makes that leap that everyone expects, which is looking like the freshmen grow up at a pace that makes sense. This team has every chance to make another deep run, potentially a title. And Jonathan left impressed, and honestly, so did I reading it. I think his attention to detail, but also kind of some of the things that we've talked about because we've done some reporting ourselves through some of the back channels, but also kind of just understanding the more you cover a team, you understand what the team is looking for from a DNA standpoint. And this team has everything that they want. It's just a matter of getting it done. That's why we can't wait for the games to start because expectations may be high, but I'm going into this season with a very open mind to understand that, look, this is almost like it's not a transition like the way a transition is when you're rebuilding, but a transition to, look, we have the pillars are still there. 65% of their offense is still there. But the guys who are kind of running the show are new. Silas is new. Malachi is new. Those two dudes are literally the keys to this. If Silas is who Kamani and Luke and Dan think he is, the sky's the limit because the rest of the team will fall in line easily, right? I didn't even mention Jacob Furphy on this at all. Like, is that a guy who, again, is also another kind of backup on-ball point guard? There is no shortage of options. That's the real big key to all of this. So give it time. Let the team kind of figure itself out. And by that first big game, December 9th, I believe, where it's like Madison Square Garden, then you're in Kansas, then you have a bye game, but then you're back to Madison Square Garden, then you're playing, Arizona at home, like all of that. That'll really tell you about where this team is by the time Big East play starts. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about this recruiting trail. I've talked about this on my show before. Recruiting is not about just getting the number one recruits in the country. We need to get all a bunch of top 10 talent. No, you prioritize what you think is going to happen during the year. Like they're already projecting some guys to potentially leave that have eligibility, that can stick around. So that's an interesting part of this between priorities and wants. I want to, make a lot of money and be happy and everything is, everything needs to go smoothly. But my priority is my health, my wellness, and I let the other stuff fall in place. Right? So when we're talking about the priorities, I don't want anyone to think that we're talking about how UConn doesn't like a kid or, that they wouldn't take them, that they've already dismissed it. No, it's just there's a pecking order. So it's the same way I'm sure everyone did like a fantasy football draft. You have your priorities of who you want on your team. But then you're also like, I like this guy too. And if he falls to me, maybe I get a priority and a want and like a extra benefit. That's the best of both worlds. So that's something that we're going to talk about here in the next segment. I just wanted to make sure you guys understood, and we'll talk about it coming up. All right, you're back on the Hoopscott Pod with your host, Mark Zanetto, talking about recruiting priorities here for the 26-27 class. Where are we with Dylan Mingo? The visit went well. This is according to people I spoke to in the know. And I even got an anonymous tip that said, quote, "You guys are getting Mingo." So then I opened it. I'm like, whoa, what's this? And then I pressed the person. And the answer was pretty simple. He followed the whole team on social media, who he hadn't already been doing. And that's always a good sign. But let's be very clear, it's not confirmation. So I hope that means he's really kind of ready to go and, Stores is the destination. But the reality is that nowadays kids take every visit. They want to get noticed and they want to feel wanted. And there's a strategy behind it. So whether they have their parents doing it or they have agents or whatever, if something goes wrong, let's say Dylan Mingo does pick UConn and worst case scenario, he doesn't have the best year. Well, the teams that he visits will all want to say, well, it'll be better here. And that's a lot of the reason why you see guys go to places that they got an offer from in the transfer portal. So you can't just put all of your eggs in one basket sometimes. And even if you really want to go to one school, you got to kind of see what's out there. And listen, and the coaches and the programs who recruit you the hardest are the first time around. That's why a lot of players don't commit early. It's also about, let's be honest, it's about vanity. If you're at your job right now and you had an opportunity to go visit 7 other places that were going to pay you more money or similar money and tell you how great you are at what you do and how you could transform their office structure and lead a team and all this different stuff, you may not go, but you definitely want to take the visit. They're going to take you to dinner. They're going to schmooze you. They're going to tell you, oh God, let me tell you, man, you're the best. I watched that one time you played your game and it was like nothing I've seen before. And all that it just makes you feel good. And so maybe some kids don't care and they don't want that, but there's definitely some vanity to it. Also, if you have parents like I had parents, they're proud of you. Like, take all the visits, so they can tell their family, yeah, he visited St. John's, he visited UConn, he visited Villanova. What other Big East school can I throw in there? Creighton. Then he got an offer from Duke, like all this different stuff. Even if you don't go, you know how parents are. If I wasn't the best student in the world, but if I got a look from like Georgetown, my mom would have been like, oh my God, he got an offer from Georgetown. Yeah, so like sometimes it's, even if the basketball program isn't what it is, parents have different priorities for you sometimes. So, but anyway, here's the deal. It feels good to be wanted, right? Dylan Mingo, and Cole Cloer. You got Abdu Toure and Junior County. Would UConn take all of them? Absolutely. But let's talk about the priorities. What's the big board look like? The top UConn big board hasn't changed. It's Mingo and it's Cloer. Elite point guard or big guard, combo guard, elite wing, high IQ, who can score and defend. That's UConn's formula. Keeping that caravan leadership, keeping that point guard, whether it was the Stephs, the Tristans, the Cam Spencers, like that mold of having that 6'5", 6'4", rangy, lanky point guard. That's what they want. They have it this year with Silas. They didn't have it last year, and this year is up in the air. Last year, we know what happened. And the staff is doing some calculus too. Think about it. If when this season is over, I know we haven't even started this season, but just bear with me. You lose Alex, you lose Terrace for sure. Solo Ball's on track to be an All-American, so you're probably going to lose him too. You could lose a Braylon Mullins because if he has a monster freshman year, or even if he shows flashes of first-round talent, he's going to start getting pulled, right? And if Silas has a good game, he already checked in on the NBA draft this year. So if those guys make leaps, you could potentially lose your entire starting lineup or 5 of your first 6 in the draft if Jalen starts over Braylon Mullins. So if you have to be thinking about it like that, and if it ends great, if UConn wins another national title, guys are probably going to leave just because, maybe you lose your entire starting 5 because of the potential. Everyone was on a big stage and they all performed. All of that matters. So how do you replace that? Even if they don't win a title and they get to the Final Four, whatever. You get what I'm saying. How do you replace that? With impact freshmen, strategic transfers. So don't be surprised if this is actually a larger class. So I could 100% see a world where both Mingo and Cloer are the priority. But if they had to choose between one of the two, they're gonna prioritize Mingo because of the point guard and how that spot is so much harder to fill. Missing him wouldn't be devastating, but it would sting because he's an absolute monster. And Cloer is a culture continuer. He doesn't jump off the page at you. He's more of a coach's pick in terms of, he's going to do all the right things, but he's also not going to transform your team with just him. It needs to be in addition to. And that's not a knock on him at all, because I think he's a phenomenal player, and I said the same stuff about Alex. Mingo is a whole other deal. And then there's Toure, the Connecticut High School Player of the Year. Is he on UConn's list? Absolutely. Is he a priority? Not really. Is he someone they like? Yes, definitely. But he's not the one. And that's no slight at Toure. That's just how staffs make priorities. From what I've heard, they like him, but they don't love him. There's a line from A Bronx Tale that I think about a lot. Sonny says to C, a lot of great almosts out there. And I'm sure if some of you guys or gals are, with someone that you love, you probably remember what the almost look like. That's kind of how recruiting is. You got to fall in love with these guys because they're with you at least for a year. If they're amazing, they're with you for at least a year, but they could be with you for like 5 years, like Alex. And to me, Toure might be an almost good enough to be the guy that you kind of want. You need him in your program. Likeable enough. He's a good kid. He's a great student, but not the centerpiece, not the one you want to spend the rest of your life with, right? And another wrinkle. With rosters now at 15 and NIL money flying around, waiting has its advantages. Could UConn sign Mingo, Cloer, and Toure? Absolutely. What's the worst that could happen? Right? You keep Toure away from Providence, who have been sniffing around. And from what I hear, Arkansas interest has cooled, but the Providence angle is absolutely real, that they are very interested. Because look, that's a psychological thing. If Providence can say whether UConn wants Toure, if you don't agree with my assessment from the things that I've learned, and you think that they're all in on Toure, and then Providence gets him, that's the psychological edge. Because now Providence and their fans, who are very, very boisterous, can say stuff like, "We stole your best player." from the state of Connecticut. He wanted to come to Providence. He wanted to come to be a Friar, all that stuff, right? But I think it gets real interesting. Sometimes recruiting is as much about strategy as it about filling needs, right? If UConn jumps into the Toure mix completely, it forces Providence to make a decision. Do they pay more NIL for a kid UConn isn't dying to get on their roster? And the one that they would gladly take? That weakens a rival's ability to fill their roster with someone who they might actually hurt UConn down the road. That's chess, not checkers. And remember what Dan Hurley has always said time and time again. I think sometimes we forget to listen to him and remember these things. NIL is not the first thing that's discussed at UConn. In his upcoming book with our friend Ian O'Connor, he said, what am I, a banker or a basketball coach? So there are no negotiations. You get what you get, take it or leave it. That alone filters out who really wants to be in stores. So here's where it stands. Priority 1 is Mingo. 1A is Cloer. Toure and others are in the system, but they're not the focal points. That's 1,000% the things that I've learned. Take it for what it is. You can say that I'm wrong. Hey, being wrong is free. Talked about it last time. Or sometimes being wrong can cost you money if you use my gambling picks this weekend. Listen, a mix of true must-gets and strategic maybes and a whole lot of long game thinking is essentially what this recruiting cycle is all about. Couple of things. One, really appreciate you guys subscribing. Make sure you download everything. Make sure you download all of our shows on the Big East Energy Network. We really appreciate that. Hey, next time. We'll see you next time, and we're going to talk about potentially maybe some UConn women's and get back into the previews of both the men and the women when we return from the Hoops Cap. See you next time.
Let's get it, let's get it. Let's get it, let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby.